you said, 179K last month USD, which is about 130, 140,000 pounds.
That business is going to generate like an additional 200,000 pounds this month.
Yes, pretty much. The hardest point in service-based business is not getting clients, it's managing those clients, it's filling those clients, and it's kind of scaling them. I can contribute absolutely zero from my marketing degree to where I am now.
What is good, agency owners? This is Jordan Ross, founder of 8-Figure Agency. Today's conversation is going to be epic. We have one of the fastest growing agencies that ADEF has ever worked with, probably one of the fastest growing agencies in the marketplace. Jacob Levine, aka Straight Line Advertising on Twitter. He's the founder of FE Growth Partner and The Growth Partner. So he has two businesses, serial entrepreneur. And I brought him on this call because in 2022, he went from being a solopreneur to having a merger and becoming a partner in a business to adding in a 9-month span about 180,000 pounds, I think, per month, exited that business, and then went to build a second business. That business is going to generate like an additional 200,000 pounds this month.
Yes. Pretty much close to that.
Now he has two businesses that are, if they do not grow this year, they'll probably do close to 5 mil if they don't grow. You and Jordan have barely been in business for a year, barely, right? So you
not actually a year yet, 10 months.
Insane, not even a year. So you think about meeting someone and within 1 year, you're building a $5 million run rate business. They're going to fucking blow past that by the time they hit 12 months. So for those of the listeners that don't know you, what do they got to know about you? Who are you? What are your agencies?
My name is Jacob. Most of you will probably know me as Straight Line Advertising. I have been in marketing for a while now, since I was about 15, 16. I actually started in advertising, hence the name. But it was all direct response. It was all generating leads, generating cash. That was where I started. Even back in the day, it was never any of the kind of pretty websites or anything like that. My focus was always on kind of collecting cash, collecting those leads. And I went to university, did a marketing degree there, learned nothing. Decided I can contribute absolutely zero from my marketing degree to where I am now, which is, it's a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But in terms of kind of my journey, just at kind of high level for those of you who maybe don't know me, I started an agency when I was around 19.
And how old are you now, for context?
Just so 24.
Cool.
I grew up for about 3 years. So it was like 19, 20. Did that, went from kind of negative when I started, invested all my money into courses. Like I was like, I'm just going to make it work. Grew that. It was kind of me and my girlfriend. We were growing that together while we were at university. We got to around $60,000, around 50,000 pounds from that towards the end. But what I had realized is that it was just kind of a glorified job. And I had essentially built this kind of prison for myself where I couldn't go.
Agency prison? What?
Yeah, like it really is true. Like agencies are a great cash flow business, but built wrong. And it just is that. You have to work harder than other people would to make a little bit extra money, which is great. Like, and that's a trade-off I made for a while, but I realized it wasn't the end goal. For me, the end goal now is, exits. It's looking at building businesses that run without me. It's looking at where can we get, 100 mil exit, which is the goal we're going for in the end.
Let's go.
And that's really what business is about and its core fundamentals. When you look at all of the people that we look up to, the Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, like they're building businesses with real enterprise value, and that's where the real money and the entrepreneurial game is made. So that's really where I've made the shift over the last 12 months. And as you rightly said, I have a business partner, Jordan. We met around 11 months ago. I think we met, it's about our 1 year this month, actually, since we first.
I'm scrolling back in our DMs right now to see when you slid into mine.
Which was similar. Me and Jordan met at the same time. We kind of first spoke as well. And it's about a year since I've met my business partner. We decided to go into business together around May time. So again, like 10 months ish, we've been partners. We built what we call as FE Growth Partner, which is what I said, which is basically sales and marketing, and is helping companies grow, specifically focusing on revenue generating activities and helping them basically solve two things, which is generating demand and also helping them close that demand, which is a massive problem a lot of agencies will face, regardless if you're in ads, you're in lead gen, anything like that. You can generate leads and opportunities, but it doesn't mean that they're closing them. So we kind of took that approach, combined my skill, which was marketing, Jordan's skill, which was sales, and then added in kind of the offer creation. And that's kind of how we've grown all of our partners over the last 9 months. As you said, 179k last month USD, which is about 140,000 pounds. And then last month we decided that it was time to kind of take this a step further and start building kind of an ecosystem of what we're doing. So we kind of announced and launched the growth partner, which again, as you said, we'll do around 200,000 this month as well. So two businesses in a very healthy state. And we have a big team behind that to support that too.
Well, first, thank you so much for the overview. And to give specific context, we started DMing. The first DM, I got tagged in a post with you on March 10th, 2022. For those of you that are curious, we're recording this on March 15th, 2023. So, it looks like our first call we had was in the 25th, 30th. So we spoke at the end of March about a year ago. Let's go there, right? So when we met, you still hadn't formed a partnership with your partner, Jordan, and we got on a call, instant vibe, right? Like instant connection. It's kind of like one of those moments like where they say real recognize real. And for everyone listening, I think it's so critical, right? Like when Jacob and I meet, when I meet guys like him, I meet Wiz, I meet Jordan. If you are not legit, people will sniff that out in a minute, like in a minute. Jacob said when I was 15, 16, I started doing this game, right? So when I get on a call with him a year ago, he's 23. He's been doing this for 8 years already. So I get on the call, I'm like, whoa, this guy's legit as fuck, right? So Jacob, what happened? We spoke, you're like, you need to work with this guy, Jordan. I talked to Jordan. He's like, I need to work with you. And then you hit me back up. He's like, yeah, I'm actually going to partner with him. So what was that? What were your first few months like? Because when we started working with each other, there's nothing, no systems. Jordan just knows how to sell and you have like one client. What did we do in the early stages of this from what you recall?
Yeah, so I think when we engaged, I had already made the conscious decision that I was going to go with you at that point. And then I introduced you to Jordan as well. And then I remember me and Jordan both messaging you at one point. Actually, we're just going to do it together. And from that point, like essentially we were starting with a blank slate in terms of what we could do, which is good. And we had all that kind of potential there to really take this as far as we want. We knew between me and Jordan, like the only thing that's going to trip us up was operations. We didn't have a problem with marketing. We didn't have a problem with sales, and like we could get clients. Like we already had people. Like the first month we worked together, we signed like 4 clients, all like basically like 70, 80, 90K deals over the course of that kind of year. So it wasn't hard for us to get clients. It was harder for us to build the operational back end and scale it, which is the problem with like any service-based business. The hardest point in service-based business is not getting clients, it's managing those clients, it's fulfilling those clients, and it's kind of scaling them. And obviously we get tied into 12 months agreements, so we don't have a luxury of kind of messing up. Otherwise 12 months you're either going to get 12 sued. Months. Yes, you're either going to get sued, or by the end of it the client's going to absolutely despise you for every kind of reason under the sun. And I think that's where straight away we're like, okay, well, we have this gap. We need to do something about it, engage with you. And that's where we started kind of really building that out. And it took a while. It
actually didn't take a while. You guys had one of the fastest. And for context, we engaged in like April-ish, maybe May, probably end of April, start of May.
Yeah.
And by December, you guys were already doing like 120. You guys had gotten as far up to 180, and you already had found like what do you call it, the GM of your business, and you had found those 2 guys.
We have a full exec team now. We have 6 of us on the exec team.
So in 8 months, we went from 0 to 180 with a full executive team, and you guys were out of the business by December. So that's fucking crazy. So let's take the listeners through that journey. How the fuck did you do that?
What happened during that period is we made a lot of mistakes. I think that's the first thing is like, we got out quickly, but we could have done it in half the time knowing what we know now.
And to say that though, right, because we had your back though, right, because you still have to do the work. It would have taken, you could have done it in half the time, but you would have done it in triple the time, or maybe quadruple the time if we didn't have your back doing it with you too. So obviously in hindsight, 2020 could always do it faster second time around. But
there's never a point where I think it's not worth having a coach there. At every point in my life, I've had some sort of mentor or coach there with us and with me to take me to that next level. And it's still something, we implement today. And I think that's the important thing is like when you're first starting stuff, if you don't fulfill the operational problems you have at the early stages, as you scale, this is just going to get exponentially worse. Complexity scales so much that you literally create that kind of prison that we were talking about. Kind of the early stages for us is as quickly as possible was hiring talent. And I think, when you're hiring talent, especially when you're kind of early in, you look at hiring talent for specific places in the business where it brings your energy down. You need to kind of do the manual work. And when we were bringing that talent on, you kind of cut costs as well at the beginning as well. So we learned lessons in that way. Like we knew we had to hire, we'd hire like the wrong person and set us back. So even though we had the direction, it took that trial and error of really understanding what was needed in each seat of the business. And I think as we got further down the journey, I had a better grasp on what was actually needed per role. Because when you're still new, you don't really fully understand that. You're fulfilling everything and you don't have the clarity that you need. It took us probably 2 months to hire an operator. And as Jordan, you said, I was a COO when I'm a marketer. And I was like tricking myself into thinking I was some sort of COO. I'm a terrible operator. Terrible.
No, you're not terrible. It's just not your skill set and it just drains your energy. I think most agency owners like you, they fucking trick themselves. Like you tell yourself something long enough, you start to believe it, right? 100%. I remember that first operator hire. I remember young, talented dude, like really young. Yeah. And you guys tell me like, yeah, this guy's going to be your COO. And, and the thing I want to highlight for everyone listening, you could have the right template, you could have the right model, you could have the right, and that's what we were giving these guys, Jordan and Jacob. Like we gave them the model. How do you interview? How do you qualify? But you still have to understand from a technical level as an interviewer, like you have to have the right person, the right seat. And sometimes you need to be in it, understand, like maybe hiring someone that is 19 isn't going to be the person that's going to be our operator, because like, how the fuck could they be, right? How could someone that's never built a business to an 8-figure level consciously, it's the ambiguity, right? They could be a good operator on a lower level.
100%.
I think that's what you guys learn, right? This guy's a killer. He'll be an exceptional operator and executive in the long term, but he's still very green, right? And that was one of the early learnings. And that's
100%. And also we grew so fast at every level. Like we were jumping like multiple tens of thousands every single month. Like it's hard for anyone apart from like that A+ talent to keep up. You're coming into a business that bringing in new partners and clients, and the operator who's never been there, never done it before, even with all the systems and stuff, that they're trying to keep up. The problem is, when you scale so quickly, it brings in its own set of problems, and that's where I think having someone like yourself there was able to give us the direction and limit a lot of additional mistakes we could have made,
Yeah.
And as well, like in business in whole, like you're always going to make mistakes, and you only know that and recognize that when you look back. From what we've learned over the past year, we have the pathway. We're sure to go and hit that 100 million in the next 5 to 10 years. And that's the goal that we're going for. And the biggest problem we've had to solve has been operations, been systems. And what we found is like, anytime we've pushed up, what happens is you get a spike when you bring in all these clients, and you can't operation fulfill, and then the business takes a dip, and it's how quickly you can get it to go back on the up. And we've been very good at turning that around through, engaging with people like yourself, bringing on the right talent and putting more systems in place. And that's, I think, such an important process that people need to go through, building the operational system for scale rather than where you are now. Because a lot of people look at like fixing a problem in isolation rather than looking at the wider picture of where you're trying to get to.
Yeah. And that's why, and then for everyone listening, that's exactly, when we build a roadmap, we're not building a roadmap for 5 million. We're building structures that will scale with 10, 20, 30 million. Like there's something that we call at Amazon, it's called first pass yield, which means when you do something the first time, it's perfect. Like you don't go back to it, you don't retouch it, you don't remake it, it's done. I think what you're talking about, every agency owner, right? I'm a 20K, or I'm at 50K, I'm at 100K, I'm at 150K, I'm going to build this thing. But the mind is just thinking about like the next 50K or the next 100K. Like you need to be able, and it's impossible. If you haven't built an 8-figure business, you haven't run or managed an 8-figure business, you don't fucking know what it looks like at that scope. It's like having 50 to 100 employees. You have no clue, right? And the thing that I love about what you guys did, you went out and paid for killer talent, like at the end of last year. And that's something we've done too, right? We now have, I was doing the math in the shower last night. I'm like, fuck, we're going to pay over $1 million in salaries this year. That's crazy, right? It's fucking nuts. And to think, I quit Amazon 3 years ago in the summer. What was the difference? You hired tenured leaders, right? All the guys that we bring on, they're all way older than me, just like your GM is way older than you, right?
Yeah.
What'd you learn by bringing on someone so tenured? Like, you're making a bigger investment, but Hormozi talks about like an A+ player is worth like 3 or 4 B or A players.
Oh,
What did you learn from doing that?
That is the most true statement. Like every 18 player we have, the difference they make to the business, like they can come in and hit the ground running, where even with like the B+ players who are like really good, the ramp period is longer. And in a business that's changing so quickly, some people just can't adapt. Like even the good talent, some people can't adapt. And like that's fine. Like some people aren't built to be in those kind of environments, but when we've hired the 18 talent, they're all more experienced. And the reason is like the experience that's on Twitter is so limited. It's unbelievable.
Everyone's so young. Money Twitter is like a bunch of guys that look like us, and everyone's young as fuck doing the same shit.
If you're over 30 and Money Twitter, you are old. Probably over 25 to be honest at this point. That's
me and your partner are old.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. That's the kind of why I think there's a little bit of a bubble around it. So we look outside of that, and the best talent we found are people who have been there and done it before. So they have worked in some kind of tech, or they've worked in an agency or an e-commerce or something relevant. This gives them the kind of the know-how and the information that they need to kind of come and hit the ground running. Like our managing director, Kate, she worked in multiple agencies and an e-commerce agency and did loads of stuff in digital. She's not coming in, and even though she doesn't know the world we're in, she can adapt.
She has the context
quickly. Exactly. The second thing is when you're interviewing those kind of people, the answers they give and the questions they ask are much better. One thing that I love is seeing what kind of questions people ask back to me in interviews. And granted, I'm actually out of the hiring process for the most part now.
Let's go.
Yeah, I made some terrible errors in the hiring process, so it's probably a good thing. The questions they ask back, you can tell that they actually have thoughts going on rather than people saying what you want them to say.
I'm going to ask you something because I think it's going to sound good and impress you.
Exactly. And there was someone I actually hired who is either telling me everything I want to hear and he's perfect, or he's perfect. It's one of the two. And same thing. It ended up he just told me everything I want to hear. And that's the thing. When people are older, a lot of the time, we have our general manager. He's late 50s. He just tells it as straight as it comes. And for business, that's such an important thing because a lot of people live in this kind of delusion within their business where they don't actually really focus on what the real issues are. And having people there who aren't your yes men, who aren't just going to say your ideas are great, is such an important point. And you need people who are going to come in with their own ideas. And if they can't, and that's why I like what questions they ask us, because it shows them thinking through things in their own mind. If they can't ask those questions, they can't give you that critical feedback, then your business is only ever going to be as good as you. And you could be the greatest entrepreneur. Like Jordan, you're a great entrepreneur, but you're not the best at everything. You're not the best at building product. You're not the best at marketing. You're not the best at sales. You're great at those things, but you're not the best person in the world at those things. And you shouldn't have to be. That's why it's a business. You're not a freelancer. And that's the difference, I think, where I'm seeing so many people on Twitter go wrong. They think you can only hire young kids who are hungry, who are in this place, who understand it, rather than thinking, actually, why don't I take the insights that I'm learning, train people who have more experience in business and give them the insights that we have and let them implement, let them come up with ideas that we didn't even think of because we're only isolated in this small little bubble of the internet.
That was a great observation about Money Twitter. We talked about talent and how really that was the big thing for you guys. Talent is the one running the systems. We didn't really talk about systems. I want to talk about two. Tell us, for everyone, what are those two systems and how did those help optimize the operation for your business?
Yeah, so I'll start with top two. This is we still use this every day. So we use that in multiple ways. I know, again, you have your 411. It's basically how we reverse engineer what we're trying to achieve and essentially saying two goals that we can focus towards. And typically they're more input focused, so you can control them because most people focus on outputs, focus on how much money they need to make this month. And essentially when you're doing that, you are going to make bad decisions. Because if you're saying I need to hit 100,000 this month, then you're going to push people over the line who shouldn't push over the line. And that's typically what happens time and time again. So we focus more on the input side of things. And we say, okay, well, in 12 months, you want to be here. In 3 months, you want to be here. In a month, you want to be here. This week, we need to do this. and daily we need to do this. And essentially we take the goal, say, okay, well, what do we need to do at every stage to hit that? What are the kind of key milestones almost? When does it need to happen? And then from there, we're able to actually say, okay, well, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, what do the departments need to be looking at? So now our team, we set the monthly ones for our team, and the execs will also set theirs for their department. We'll check, we'll make sure everyone's happy with it. It's all in alignment with the overall business structure. They'll go back to their teams, feed that into their teams, say, okay, what's your monthly top twos for yourselves? Then on a weekly basis, the teams will feed in, okay, here's what our weekly top twos are, here's what we need to achieve. And then again, down to a daily. The end of day reporting kind of comes into that as well. So we'll actually feed back on the top twos. So we'll do a monthly review. Okay, were the top twos achieved? Yes, no. Okay, if no, why? What happened? What's the kind of the root cause of that? How are we going to make sure that doesn't happen again? Weekly, same thing. And then daily, we have the Slack channel set up. So what happens is they'll feed in just in the Slack channel, say, here's the top twos. End of the day, they'll go back, reply to that and say, okay, completed or not. If not, and our execs are checking this as well, making sure that people are kind of filling that out. If not, again, why? What's the plan to correct it?
I love probably more than anything when like the student becomes the teacher, right? Because I remember distinctly in my head, like we're going through this and, there's nothing up until this point, and how you guys really perfected it for your business. I love how you have that's unique. You're posting a top two at the start of the day. And at the end of the day, you're following up with the plan, and just becomes a circular loop where, it's really simple in operations, right? If you have a problem and you have visibility, what's the issue? What's the root cause? Why did it break? Or why didn't we hit this thing? Or why did we miss our target? Whatever. Here's my plan to fix it. And then the next day, here's my top two for today. Here was the follow-up from yesterday. And it, with the accountability, the executives reviewing this and just creating visibility. I got hit up. I posted about this concept on Twitter last week, and someone's like, this seems like micromanagement. And my first thought was, you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. For those of you that might be thinking, that's crazy. That's micromanagement. It's not. Micromanagement sitting over someone's shoulder throughout their day, checking on them consistently. Having reporting is visibility. It's accountability. Yeah, if you think about any sport, when you were playing European football, right? The data, if we missed any tackles, if you let up a goal, if you had an assist, like all the data is there for everyone to fucking see. That's how it needs to be in business. All the data needs to be completely transparent, because if we're underperforming, it should just be able to be seen. Oh, hey, what happened here? Oh, let's fix this. Let's coach you on it. Let's develop you on it.
That visibility point is so important. And what we've found is as the team has grown, and we're about a team of 40 now, which is ridiculous just how quickly that's yeah, which is, it's growing fast. And at that point, everyone's always in ramp up. They're still learning as they're going, all this kind of stuff. We doubled in the last 60 days, even since like Christmas. And at that point, what's happening is the further up you go, the less visibility you get. Me and Jordan sitting at the top, we really only see a lot of what the execs are doing now. The execs are meant to manage everything else. So, we're training the execs. We're making sure the execs are doing what they need to do, that they're going above and beyond, and giving that 100%. And they're then doing the same for their team. And it's all just training and reducing the feedback loop so that people can know where they're going wrong, improve, and making sure that at any point, if what they're working on isn't the highest priority, we know about it before they spend too much time wasting on it.
Yeah, we're shifting it.
And this is how you get the whole organization to row in one direction. I was speaking to a founder the other day, he's doing about 100 million. He mentioned that they time every single person. So everything is grouped. So everyone's working on things at the same time. So it's all like they're all rowing in one direction. It's very, very interesting. And that's, I think, the difference is that people just starting out, may seem like micromanaging, but it's actually essential to get to where you want to go.
It's just high performance, right? Like if you go into any sport, and I think business and sports are so closely correlated and the novices don't see it, but you get feedback all the time, and it's just, let's make this tweak, right? Let's do this. It's going to lead to this result. And one more example, then we'll turn the tables a little bit. Spoke to a founder yesterday. He's like, my VP of business development's underperforming. We're doing about $1 million a year, but I think we could easily do 3 or 4. Our average ticket is about $50K per sale, right? So he's like, if we book 20 appointments in a month, he's going to add $1 million in sales. I'm like, so why aren't you? He's like he's not booking enough appointments. He does business development. I'm like, okay, what are his KPIs? How many emails does he send a day? Because they said their primary method is cold email. He's like, he hasn't hit it. And I'm like, all right, so how often are you checking on him? He's like, every 2 weeks. I'm like, dude, there's your problem. You need to have a fucking daily. He needs to send 100 emails a day. If he sends 100 emails a day, they will earn $1 million a year. Like literally that simple. But he never hits it because every 2 weeks, the guy finds out if his team, his VP hit the number, and like so stupid. So yeah.
It's the feedback loop. Like the long, like, and this is something that I've really drilled down to our team recently. Is just like the feedback loop from individual departments, but also just between departments, like needs to be shorter. Like
Quick.
It needs to be so quick,
Yep.
so that as soon as something happens, we know the results and we know how it all links together, so you can keep making decisions. The longer it takes, you can leave so many gaps and inefficiencies in your business that long term, those little gaps turn into massive cracks and gaping holes. And that's where things are essentially, everything that you built starts falling apart. Foundational crumbles.
Before we wrap, for everyone listening, is there 1-2 points that you're like, fuck, if I knew this a year ago, I would have done this in 6 months instead of 10, 11 months?
I think the first one is hiring 18 talent sooner than we did. I think it's hard because it's easy to say that. It's hard to know what 18 talent looks like till you've gone through it. But a lot of the time spending more, like you just said earlier, you're going to spend 300,000 on someone. We're looking at a similar kind of person. Spending that much more is scary, but the exponential return on investment, it's so big, it outweighs everything. And we would have progressed faster with less talent, but more 18 talent. And that's something that we're taking and using now as we move forward as well. I could give someone the number one piece of advice is starting to scale up. It'd be look for that 18 talent. The second thing for me is partners. Jordan, from our experience, I see you as a partner in that sense, and saying, you mentioned Wiz and all these kind of people. We truly believe in partnerships. I know growth partners, Jordan always says the smartest decision he ever made was giving me half of his business, like for him. And that's the same way. Every time I've done a partnership, every time I've built and developed relationships with someone, the business has grown exponentially. And it's the same thing as kind of coaching and mentoring. But I think there is a massive thing to be said about building long-term partnerships with talented people. Doesn't mean you have to give away your business. But for example, Jordan, me and you, we talk all the time, we share insights, and that the exponential return on your business, again, is going to be massive. If you can give people equity, don't be afraid to. So a lot of people will hold on to that. But again, a smaller slice of a bigger pie, you still make more money. And that's kind of a blocker I see a lot of people have.
I couldn't agree more. We're going to wrap up. For everyone that wants to learn more about you, follow you on social, get in touch with you, sign up for your programs, where should they go?
Best thing is just go to my Twitter straightline ad. In there will be a link in the bio to get free kind of training resources, whatever you want, and booking a time to talk as well if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing as well.
I love this guy. Like, there's a few people that I work with that I actually build genuine, really close relationships with, and him and his partner Jordan are like two of my favorite people ever that I've worked with. They're legit, they're amazing humans, and they're fucking hungry. So guys, give him a follow if you don't already. And if you do, well, now you know he's a real G.